Really glad to get to talk to you today.
Yes. Well, dude, it ever since you asked to translate one of my videos and then I saw you do it, I've been like, holy crap, dude, there's people in Vietnam who are fans of Jordan Peterson. So that's I mean, it's like I don't know. I get to tell my friends I have like, yeah, I know people in Vietnam who are also fans of Jordan Peterson. So it's cool.
And fan of your video as well.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I mean that's really cool. I appreciate because you've done a your whole channel is translating a lot of like Peterson's lectures and uh, like Carl Jung and other clips into you add Vietnamese subtitles, right?
Yeah, only that. I was about to trying to do something creative, like making a video about a topic, certainly, but I actually haven't tried it enough.
Oh, sure. So something of yourself, you mean? You would put something of your own together.
Yeah, I was, a bit too hesitate about that.
Sure. Well, hold on. Well, I'm just curious. Tell me about yourself. So you're in Vietnam. What's your background and all that?
Well, basically, my family was fairly well off by the time I got into college. I don't know which college to choose, so I just listened to my parents, and they said that I should go into trade union university.
Okay.
A horrible decision,
Okay.
like trade union is a puppet institution in Vietnam, so it's really, pointless,
A puppet
sadly,
institution of what?
of the, you know, of the government, I would say, because
Interesting.
the law here is really weird. Like, for example, it's technically illegal to protest anything.
Really?
So the law have a really complicated rules in on what condition that you can protest legally. So basically, historically, there has only been one legal protest in Vietnam, like
And what
for
was
like
yeah, what was that for?
for like 80 years, and the only legal protest was organized by the former president of our country.
Right.
So
Cuz is
technically doesn't count.
yeah, yeah, that well, yeah, if you can only protest when the government says it's okay. Isn't
Yeah.
Vietnam pretty is it socialist or how would you describe the government?
Well, I would say that it's pretty much like China, but
Really?
it's on
Vietnam is too. Interesting.
the government is oppressive in a lesser way. So basically, we the government isn't that oppressive because they still they don't want to kill that many people essentially because for example like you have read about land reforms and the
Uh
bloody
I think I know very
situation around that.
yeah, I've heard the term. I don't know much background at all though.
So you understand that in like France, for example, they cut off the head of the queen and kings. Do you
Yeah.
remember that
Mhm.
event? So basically in Vietnam, like you know that thing doesn't happen yet. So for example, like my grandparents family, they own a huge amount of land from the monarchy era. So they have something has to be done. The so basically they hit the reset button and everything went back to the start. My parents, get the amount of land is equal to everybody else in a country. So they divided fairly at that point. But after some time, when capitalism emerged, then obviously some big company starting to accumulate it well to the point that it's no longer fair, and we cannot really hit the reset button again.
Interesting.
So it's just weird.
Yeah.
And when the land reform happened, they just accepted it and move on. So of course they're gonna be bad blood because for example, my family, everybody hate us because we were once part of the monarchies, and they trying to makes my parents' life and my grandparents' life harder just a bit. But essentially, they still have a equal chance to fight
Sure.
for their life. But definitely the Vietnamese they were not murderers like the China. So
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's good. I guess. And you still have.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm going to be completely ignorant on almost everything about this. So forgive me if any of my questions are sound stupid to you. But I mean, like in China, they can't access the internet as freely, right? So I mean, like, is Jordan Peterson even available in China? Can people watch his lectures, or is that censored? Because obviously
Well,
you
I don't
can
know.
watch it in Vietnam.
Well, I don't know about that, but there is basically how do I say it? Like the government, the communist regime made a deal with the people. Like so, like if if the people doesn't mess things up or just speak too much about a certain discredited thing, then they can basically bend the rules as they like, as they prefer,
Sure.
if they're willing to, um, pay the money or bribe someone. So, for example, like if you want to have a professor position in a university, for example, then there is an you know, there is not quite, obvious, but you know how to write to get to that position.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can basically buy almost anything. So like it's a twisted version of capitalism,
Right. Crony
essentially.
capitalism. Yeah. 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 Where it's all
Yeah.
pay for
So
play. Right.
yeah, and it's really weird because to be honest, I was benefit to at some point because of that system, and everybody in here is, for example, like the medical system, for example, like the basic the basic healthcare system is fine. It's just take a long time to be treated. For
Sure.
example, like you're gonna have to wait for like
Waiting
1 or 2
lines.
days
Hmm.
to just get treated. So they're just not gonna ignore the common folks or something like that. But there is a way that you can write to get a better treatment faster, and
Sure.
everything is like that. Um, the rule is the rule is to be banned, but not to be broken. For example, like when the pavement was not to be for the for jogging or people to walk, but is to be used for street vendor and to use it as an extension for the house. So, for example, like if they want to, put on a table on the pavement to, extend their shops
Right.
or something like that, they could just pay the local police to do it. And basically everybody had to pay the local police based on, how much do you make.
Wow. Interesting.
And
So it's like the mob basically in America, where it's a kind of a you pay the criminals for protection, and it's just, well, if you've got the money, you pay, and then you can bend the rules as such.
yeah, but it's more like, everybody was implicitly forced to pay the local police because if everybody pay like not that much, maybe like 50 bucks or $100 to the local police each month to to put a table on the pavement,
Sure.
or so, and and if you don't do it, then you get a huge disadvantage, and actually the local police are gonna come to your house and ask for it anyway. So they because the stuff that you import or export usually doesn't have something fishy about it,
Yeah. Right.
and they can always just come in and ask, where did you get this from? And most people cannot answer or give up an appropriate paper for that.
Sure.
So it's really complex situation, but it's a game that you can rig and you know how to.
Yeah. Wow. Well. Yeah. I mean, we take a lot of things for granted here in the United
Yeah,
States and in the West. So yeah, it's just interesting to imagine paying the local police for just being able to do whatever, take up some room on the sidewalk, as the law states. That's wild. Was there anything? Was there anything specific you wanted to talk about today, or do you have anything on your mind, or?
Well, maybe I want to introduce my situation about Jordan Peterson
Yeah,
in Vietnam first, and then maybe you're gonna have some question about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe
Well,
we
that
can have
that
a normal talk.
yes. Well, so that was, I mean, that was what I wanted to, talk about initially was, Jordan Peterson's a Canadian, and he wasn't popular until what, 5 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can understand why he's big in, the West, because he talks about, feminism and all of these like Western, issues, things that people kind of think of in, that's going on in America and Canada,
Hmm.
diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all this. Um,
Hmm.
so, how did you come about discovering Jordan Peterson, and what, I guess, brought you to him? How does it relate to your situation in Vietnam?
Well, basically, I was a fan of H2H3 production.
Oh yeah,
They
me
made
too.
really
I
good,
was too. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, they made really good content. Like, and they had a podcast with Dr. Jordan Peterson
yep,
twice actually, and
yes,
I started watching it, and I actually was compelled by what Dr. Peterson has to say. And for a Vietnamese and a person who isn't really well spoken and well read about English language in general, he speak really fast and with very complex sentences.
mm.
So it took a really long time for me to to actually comprehend what he actually said.
Yeah. Well, a lot of
So
people who speak English still can't comprehend them, and I can't comprehend them a lot of the times. I have to like pull my phone
yeah,
up and
yeah,
look up words sometimes. So
yeah,
yeah.
great. So basically, I was fairly depressed at that time because, like I said, I was forced, or like partly my fault, to go into the went into trade union university, and it was a horrible decision. I regret everything. Like students there, they didn't have any will to study. The teacher, they doesn't have any will to teach anything actually. So I was depressed. I don't know what I wanted to do. And after watching his video, I started to gain hope about the world and about myself, and I started to translate more. I translate some fairly weird stuff, like there's a series called Sonic for Hire. I really like that series.
Called what is it?
Sonic for Hire.
Sonic for Hire? Like Sonic the
Yeah,
Hedgehog?
yeah.
Okay.
It's a really
Okay.
funny series from
Right.
Low Brown. A,
Sure.
a, a funny series on on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Low Brown Studio,
Sure.
and I actually tried to translate some of his video, and I accumulate some videos and fan along the way, and people are really supportive.
Yeah. Right.
And the thing is, like when you speak about something like what Jordan Peterson has to say, it's basically like children fantasizing about Harry Potter world, basically, because like you said, the thing that Jordan Peterson said doesn't happen in Vietnam.
Right.
Like, and for example, like the the second wave feminism just hit Vietnam like a month ago. Like some famous book from famous author like Bell Hooks, for example,
Bell
like
hooks.
feminism for everybody. It just hit Vietnam like a month ago, actually.
Wow.
And so when someone like radical feminism get roasted, and Peterson talk to some like aggressive feminism and stuff like that, people just look like
Yeah. What is he
just
talking
watch
about?
that, and
Yeah. It doesn't make any
yeah,
sense in Vietnam. Right.
actually, like they look at it, and they react as if like they're watching Harry Potter roasting someone like Draco Malfoy or something like that.
Right. He's
It's
just
just
he's just
something
a,
like,
yeah. He might as well be a fictional character because it's so far away and so different.
yeah. But the problem is that some part of the Vietnamese community actually believe that it's actually happening in Vietnam, while it's actually not. Obviously, because there is. protesting is illegal here, for
Right.
example, obviously. So something like radical movement, any radical movement is impossible to exist inherently.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the Eastern tradition is actually kind of patriarchal. So what the feminine said is somewhat right and appropriate in Vietnam and
Yeah.
some in Eastern country,
Right. Well, it's
actually.
you know if like it's wow, and I've never talked to someone who lives in well, Vietnam or even Asia broadly. I think so. It's interesting. They just
Mhm.
kind of because there's so many assumptions and things I take for granted. Like I say, the society that we live in is affords all kinds of rights to women and is very progressive. But like you just said, Vietnam is a more patriarchal society. So the idea that the more radical militant aspects of feminism, let's say, well, that makes sense more in Vietnam because, how would you describe it as patriarchal? I mean, like, are women treated less than men generally, or how would you say it?
How do I say it? Because okay, so for example, like we have tradition from the monarchy for the from the we have tradition from the monarchy that still exists to this very day. For like for example, like each every year, so we're gonna have a party basically to celebrate or to remembering the deaths of our grandparents and even grandparents and father and forefather. So each event like that, the woman in the house gonna prepare foods, and the man basically don't have to do anything. And when the food was done, the women they sit in a separate place, which is you know lower lower in a geographic term
Sure, sure, sure.
to compare to men. So, for example, like men sat on a high table and women sat on the ground
Wow.
and stuff like that. But people pointed it out recently, and they just get rid of that kind of ideology, or
Interesting.
just part of tradition. So we still kept the tradition, well, celebrating our forefather, but we, trying to get rid of the ugly part of that
Yeah.
tradition.
Wow.
Yeah,
And you're saying this happened somewhat recently, you said? Like in the last couple months, or has that, because you said the Bell Hooks book arrived sort of in the last couple months. So like getting
yeah.
rid of that part of the tradition, is that recent?
No, no, actually, because I was saying that they started to recognize that the that part of the tradition is should be getting rid of
Right, right,
recently,
right, right.
and actually that's a good thing.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Yeah, definitely.
to say that this the Eastern society is rather patriarchal is sort of true because you know women like after like for example like we have the monarchy and we have a really Confucius tradition for a long long time, and when it comes to you know upholding our traditional ceremony and stuff, there always gonna be some patriarchal elements about that. So for example, like on every Lunar New Year's, my mom has to stay at my house to prepare a lot of food to prepare for the New Year's. And while me and my father can go out and watch the firework, for example, when the woman have to stay
Right.
in the house
Yeah, that doesn't
preparing food.
that doesn't seem particularly fair.
Actually, it's like when it come like in a hard time in the past, there are going to be a lot of hard time for both men and women. So the task for women is different from the task from the man. So man has to do a lot of hard working and difficult this make many difficult decisions since we are a small country and get invaded a lot. We get
Yeah,
invaded by China more than 1,000 years, and
yeah,
then the France, the
yeah.
American, and the Civil War and stuff like that. So
Right.
the duty for man is a lot heavier, I would say. But but the duty for women is a lot concrete. So you
Hmm.
have to do a certain things, and if you do it, then it's fine. But the problem is, the woman complain when the man doesn't live up to the standard, actually.
Right. Well,
Because if
when
the
you're
man
not,
live up to the
yeah, when you're not being
yeah
invaded, the men aren't really doing as much in that case, right?
yeah, for example, like if the man actually bring home the money, bring home the and love his family, and it's fine. The patriarchal work. But when the man, useless, doesn't bring home money, like me, for example, I still try my ass off to survive, and
Right.
then my girlfriend gonna complain like, when are you gonna get a job, a
Yeah.
decent job, you know?
Right. She's not gonna sit in and make food if you're just hanging outside playing video games and watching the Sonic
Yeah,
the movies, right? You get
yeah.
yes, that's funny. Wow. Well, I mean that makes sense,
Like
man.
like if I can bring home the money, then she perfectly willing to make the food for me and taking care of the kids. But the problem is making money and go out into the world and making deal and connecting networking is rather difficult,
Sure.
especially for an introverted man like me.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining or bragging or anything. It's a really high standard for both gender, if if it works, it works. For example, like my grandparents, for example, like um my grandparents on my father's side, he basically built everything from nothing. He raised his huge family, bought his house, bought a house for his son and daughter, and set them on a fairly well off path. Like he bribed the like high official to get my father a job, all his son a job, and his daughter, you know, he he was a great man, but he, a man of his time, sexist, bias and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and rightfully so because of the war and stuff.
Sure.
He had to, and
Well,
so like yeah,
can I ask? Because I got so many that's it's I got so many questions. Well,
okay.
you said that just going back to Peterson for a moment, because you said that you discovered Jordan Peterson through the H3H3 podcast, right? And then you said it was compelling and it inspired you to kind of do the video translation and all that. What did he say in that podcast that you found compelling?
To be honest, I don't remember because
Okay, that's
it's
fair.
really hard to remember
Sure, sure,
what he
sure,
actually said.
sure.
So for example, like even for example, I translate lots and lots of his video, and to be honest, I cannot remember most of it. I just, unconsciously, unconsciously record some of
Right,
it,
right, right,
and
right.
when I was actively, think about it. But it's just inspiring. It's really hard to say it because like I don't know what to do in my life. I don't believe in anything at that time. And when he said that there is something for you to pursue, like he introducing like big five personalities, uh, and all sorts of many interesting theories. And I started to have an interest on psychology, and I actively trying to get a degree, a psychologist degree and stuff.
Is that what you're
And this
doing
was
now?
great. Yeah.
Nice. And so, what do you want? Do you want to be like a clinical psychologist, or do you want to do research, or what do you
Um,
want to do with it?
I want to be a clinical psychologist,
Yes.
and it was inspiring to be honest. And it gives people hope that there's something to be done. And I want to tell you something that the infrastructure in Vietnam is not there yet. So something like to doing research here is impossible.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
impossible to
There
do.
aren't research universities like here in the U.S. or anything like that.
So basically, it's a really niche thing to do. So people in Vietnam complain that a lot of things that was being taught isn't that useful when it comes to to making decent jobs. Uh, so, for
Yeah.
example, like if you're studying for like maths and math and literature, it's really hard to get a job because the infrastructure has to be there first.
Right.
Peop Science, there need to be infrastructure about science and all sorts of stuff before people can make a concrete decision about anything.
Right. Well, it's not like there's plenty of people who study like gender studies and English here in the United States, and it's like that doesn't really have immediate application in the job market. And I think a lot of people realize that because there is no infrastructure set up for what are you going to do with a gender studies degree? You can either teach it
Yeah,
or you can go into corporations, into like HR departments and stuff, and that is happening. But that's it's arguable whether that wouldn't it be more useful if someone who wanted to improve the plight of like women or people who are oppressed, why not be an engineer, make a ton of money, and then use that money to make their life better, rather than, well, I'll learn about how their life is hard and then explain it to other people. It's like, so that makes sense.
yeah.
You need the infrastructure for the degree and for the knowledge to actually be useful.
And for example, like there people here are they don't read that much. Like for example, I don't think I have ever read more than 5 books a year in my entire life. So
5 books
I started,
every in a single year.
yeah.
Okay, that's way more than I
So
read. I think I'll be lucky if I read 2 books in a year. So,
well, what I'm trying to say is that people here they don't know much about science. They don't know much about almost anything, and
sure.
they basically live just just survive through something like TikToks and Facebook's videos and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's really hard to make something that is actually informative. And when I translating Jordan Peterson videos, it's really hard because not because that I don't know how to translate, because after I kept translating and make a mistake and translating. I know what he meant and know how to translate him fast and efficiently. But the problem is that my the videos that contain a lots of information doesn't get that much view, while like
The
the
Sonic.
videos about him, him or Jordan Peterson or somebody like Ben Shapiro arguing is much more compelling.
Right. Right.
Or that's the normal folks, for
Well,
example, like
that's true. I've seen that with like I have friends who like Jordan Peterson because they like the Jordan Peterson wins debate or whatever, or when he's talking about like you need a calendar, you need a routine, you need a schedule, all
yeah,
that. Once you get into the like the big five type stuff and the neuroscience, where it's like, well,
yeah.
there's this part of your brain is older, so therefore it governs more of your actions and all that. It's like it starts to get abstract. So, and I think
Yeah.
the at least what I try to do in my videos is
Mhm,
take that complicated stuff and explain it, in a practical way. Here's what that means. Here's how it looks,
mhm,
in the online, space. Like when people are debating, well, here's what's going on underneath that kind of. So,
mhm. So like I like your videos, for example, like about metaphorical substructure and
yeah,
like you mentioned you mentioned like the books metaphor that we live by and to
George
and
Lakoff.
Job Lakoff, and I just bought the Vietnamese version of that books, and maybe
Nice.
I will show you later.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I try to read it actually. Um,
Is it hard? Is it complicated? Because I've bought books that I thought I was gonna read, and then I start reading them, and I'm like,
yeah, we all
I'm not
do
smart
actually.
enough. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, we all do.
Right, right, right.
Mhm. And uh, let's go back to Jordan Peterson
Yeah.
actually. When the thing is, like as I said, like people talk about Dr. Jordan Peterson in a very abstract term, like as if he lived in a fantasy world. It's really weird because, for example, like the manosphere community, for example, basically the ideology was responding to a very specific, radical feminism
Yeah,
ideology,
you're talking about like
ideologue.
the red pill, men going their own way, manosphere, sort of the, yeah, like Kevin Samuels and Royo Tomasi and all those people. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, basically, and red pill coach and stuff like
Red pill
that.
coach. Yes, that guy. That guy is so goofy. Oh my god. But go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and for example, like basically because of their ideology was founded on, like on the basis of countering the feminism ideology. So when it comes to Vietnam, they basically put up a so Vietnamese the red the Repu Vietnam community. They just basically put up a fictional devil, the fictional radical feminism to fight. So to justify their existence,
Right.
and if they cannot justify their existence, they just how do I put it? They just come around and harassing people and
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
and just exposing how shallow they are, and basically every and even some you know Jordan Peterson community in Vietnam is like that as well. Because, for example, like I founded a community that was basically like AA, I don't Alcoholic Anonymous. Like I, I'm trying to make it not a non-profit, and the um the hierarchical structure of my community is rather loose. I don't take much money. Only if someone who give me money to ask specifically that I would translate this specific video, then
Sure.
I would take the money.
Yeah, yeah.
If not, I will not trying to make some money. And the problem is that the the publisher who translating his book to a Rule for Life, his first book, they also made a Facebook group, and there is another person who also made another Vietnam Jordan Peterson Vietnamese group based on himself. Basically, he wanted to create a group that he can later sell for money, stuff
Oh,
like that.
sure. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really
So a lot of
so
grifting
basically,
around Jordan Peterson in the Vietnam.
and basically, we don't. I trying to make really condensed contents about really good part of the podcast, trying to translate it and have a really good talk about it, trying to dissect, trying to have an opinion. But like the easiest way to grow a channel is like shit posting, right? Making
Shit
meme and
posting, yes.
yeah,
Yes, yes. Oh, man.
and
Yes.
it's really hard to make something that is actually thought provoking when I trying to make something decent about Big Five, and like there's virtually no Vietnamese, translation or research about Big Five. But actually, there is, but not much.
Hmm.
Um, and most people they trying to use something like MBTI, which is horrible,
Yeah,
and something like
the Myers
Meyer
Briggs
Briggs.
personality, right? The four letters, like INFJ or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they use something like it's really moronic. Like they look at people's face and get trying to guess
Their
what's their temperament
personality.
gonna. Yeah,
Oh
it's
man,
really
like
stupid. And
phrenology. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, yeah. And like and they're trying to like guessing their personality based on the dates of birth or something like
Yeah,
that,
well, that's
astrology.
astrology. Oh yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
but not
astrology's
not
big. Be careful if you make fun of astrology. There's going to be some people coming
yeah, like
after you at some point.
my, many of my teachers are big fan of astrology in a philosophical sense.
Yeah, right.
But it's
Well,
really sad to see that.
Jordan Peterson is he talks about how astrology was like a an early form of astronomy and how we would project our sort of internal
Unconscious
fantasies.
fantasy, yeah,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So there's
and that's fine.
yeah, 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 but don't make your life decisions based on what day you were born and whether or not the moon is in the right position at the sky. Seems like
Yeah,
a
like
bad idea.
for example, like I happen to to met a really respectable guy. He teach me a lot of things about psychologies and you know a lot of translation. He's an expert, and I don't know, but he's just when you talk to something like about astrology, and he say that March there's some conjunction about March and Jupiter, and
Yeah.
therefore like in the April this month, like there gonna be something gonna bad gonna
Yeah.
happen in Earth.
Right, right,
It's just so weird that he
right.
actually believe in that stuff, and people actually believe in that stuff. It's just weird.
Yeah, well, we're in weird times, that's for sure. So that, and
Yeah,
I think I've seen more and more people are into astrology and stuff like that. And I think it's because, well, when religion goes away, people have to put something else in that unconscious sort of fantasy, part of their brain, and there in comes astrology. So, yeah, man, that's funny.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, Um,
Well, can I ask?
yeah,
I mean, I guess I don't know. Well, there's all kinds of stuff I want to. Do you want to talk more about
mm,
Jordan Peterson, or can I ask you about just Vietnam itself, or anything in
yeah.
particular?
You can ask about anything.
Anything?
I just want to mention one thing
Yeah,
that
yeah.
the Vietnamese translation of the book "Terror for Life" was horrible. It
Is
was
it
truly horrible. It's insultingly bad.
really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's not
yeah.
well. Well, somebody should shoot an email to Jordan Peterson and say, "Hey, your Vietnam translated book is crap. Why is it bad? Do they just miss
Uh,
things
I
entirely?"
I actually contact the CEO of the publisher, and he was very, well spoken on the Facebook, and he said that he has to publishing the books, or he's gonna lose the right to the books.
Interesting. So he has to in like a certain amount of time. So he has to get them
Yeah, he
out
had
the
to shit it
door.
out.
Wow. So
So
that's what happens. Well, yeah, it's a
it's
problem with
horrible.
capitalism. Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so how old are you?
Um, 25, I would say.
25. I'm 25 too. So we're
Great.
on opposite sides of the world, but we both have to deal with you know people doing astrology and shit and all that stuff. So that's funny. Um, so you said Vietnam, it's more patriarchal. So I guess so. You said you really liked Jordan Peterson's message about like the Big Five and finding meaning and all that. Was there?
Yeah.
So could you kind of explain like what was going on in your life that made you down? I know you said you went to the university, which was a bad decision. You're kind of introverted,
Mhm.
and that wasn't you didn't really know how to deal with it. What was there something in particular that really turned around? Like gave you meaning, so to speak.
Like, Dr. Jordan Peterson has said about a lot about like when, when you haven't, socializing your kid before he was 4, and then basically he has no chance for his entire life. Basically, I was one of those kids, and it's really hard for me to to make friends, to establishing communication, and have a decent relationship with anybody, making friends, going loving my family and expressing my feelings. And when watching his video, I just feel like I have a purpose. I have something to live for, basically. You know, because I just don't know what to think, what to say most of the time. And when Dr. Peterson, introducing me a way of life, a way of thinking, teach me to be pragmatic, and to be a bit religious. I try to read a bit about Christianity and Buddhism and stuff like that. He's basically he invite me to taste life,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm. So
So
yeah. So well, can I ask? So you have a girlfriend, right? How
yeah,
has it impacted your
it's been great.
relationship? It's been good. Yes.
It's been
Well, because
great.
because you said you were one of those kids that didn't get socialized properly when you were younger. I don't know if you want to go into detail on that. You don't have to if you want, but
Yeah,
like if it's going weight, you seem to have come out
yeah.
of it with some success. How has it benefited you listening to Jordan Peterson?
Because like I trying to again, like I try to make something of myself, because like like every kid, like I don't know who I am, I don't know what I want. And like when I trying to aim at something, like aim at trying to translate your penis in videos, like I trying to get meaning out of it,
Mm-hmm.
like making friend, like realize that I become fat and should exercise more, like to making more friend, talk to a lot of people, like, and talking to trying to fix the horrible mistake of me, my horrible mistake,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get rid of bad habit, like pornography and stuff like that.
Oh
We all
yeah.
do
Yeah.
to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to create a good relationship with people. Trying to hold a conversation for more than 20 minutes. It's really hard
Yes.
for
Well, we're
people
at
who
40, so you're doing a great job so far.
yeah. And my girlfriend, she most people was always annoyed by some of my unconscious, bit aggressive behavior, and I try to integrate it to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
and it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank God that she doesn't abandon me yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that whole idea of integrating the aggression in the unconscious. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, because I was in therapy when I started this YouTube channel, right? So I
yeah,
I was I had a lot of anger and resentment because I thought, well, I'm this smart guy and look at me, I can read and I can think of these complex ideas, and so things should be going well for me or whatever. And it's like, no, because I don't have any discipline. I don't put
yeah.
myself in any uncomfortable situations. I just
Mhm.
I just want to stay in my office, and I still do that to some degree, and I still need to work on it. But the idea of
Yeah.
like integrating that anger and resentment into, well, I'm not gonna resist it. I'm going to, make something of it. I have a friend. He's one of the nicest guys, right? Like,
Mhm.
we talk on the phone, every so often. And it's always like, hey, how you doing, man? I just want to check in with you and all that. And,
Mhm.
and he one time had a fit of rage. Something happened where, he took a metal pipe and started hitting like a cardboard box, outside because he just got so angry or whatever. And it's like that's an example of it seemed to me of like you can't just pretend that anger doesn't exist, right? You can't pretend that doesn't exist. You have to integrate it and make something of it. And so for me, I'll do the videos like talking about the whole issues of, well, like in the United States and in the West, there's children who are having surgery performed on them to be a different gender because of a whole belief system. It's basically a religion, in my opinion.
I do watch that
Yes,
situation
yes,
from
yes, and that's
CSA Stitch, and
yeah, yeah, and it's like to me that's so wrong. And I know people, I know parents who have kids who haven't had the surgery, but they're like affected and confused by this whole belief system that is so backwards. And so, part of what I try to do is be willing to speak to that and say, hey, this is wrong, even though, well, I might get attacked or whatever, something like that, which, who cares getting attacked online or something like that. But like,
yeah.
channeling that, for something useful, right? To call out the problems in society. So, yeah, the whole part of integrating the shadow, right? That's a big part of Peterson's work that has been big for me, and sounds like for you as well.
Mm, when it's come to talk about like gender topic, like I actually trying to to listen to some opinions about what the gender community has to say,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
a lot of things that just got me thinking about why would they do this thing? Just weird. And for example, like I watched a long time this video, for example, let me show you.
Sure.
Abigail, Abigail Schreier.
Yes, Abigail Schreier is a fan of mine. Don't mind if you won't mind if I hit my vape, will you?
Yeah, it's fine. Uh, example, like when I typing like Abigail Shire irreversible damage review, for example, on YouTube, like I trying to watch all the videos that relating to this, and 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 some of the video is rather negative. For example, like
Let me
for
see.
example, this video, for example, um, many many
Yep,
similar videos, and I trying
I've
to
seen that one.
understand
Yeah.
whether that is an acceptable or reasonable, uh, you know, co- you know, apply or not.
Yeah,
Like
right.
I
Because if you disagree with an idea, you should go out of your way to hear the best arguments for that
against it.
idea,
Yeah,
right? So you should engage that.
yeah,
Definitely. Yes.
yeah. And I come across to this channel. It's pretty. I think I watched like some of
Yeah.
her videos.
Yes. Yes. I've seen some of her
It's
stuff too.
fairly great. Fairly
Yes.
great. Just
Straightforward.
weird that like for example like Dave Chappelle for example like I just when she like the complex transphobia of Dave Chappelle for example like this video I just found it weird that they call him like transphobic
Yeah.
because like he make fun of trans people Like,
He makes fun of
what can we
everybody.
make fun of?
Yeah,
Like,
right,
what can we make fun of?
right.
Like for example, like do you remember like the PewDiePie incident when he making like the true Indian guy to holding up a
Probably. Yes.
like
Sounds like something he would do. Yeah, yeah.
like I don't know, but perhaps perhaps that is a bit too far. But I think it's still fairly funny and reasonable to thing to do.
Yeah, well, there, as long as something's funny, it's okay to say. Maybe, maybe. If that's the rule I go by. Is I don't I won't. If you're gonna be edgy, it better be funny. That's the only time it's acceptable. Because yeah,
Yeah,
there's there's just you know like lowbrow jokes. People just a dude in a dress or whatever. It's like I've talked to trans people, and it's like there's a sizable number of people who genuinely have gender dysphoria, and their brains are more similar to the sex that they identify with. And for those people, like we should respect it, bring them into society, and don't elevate them, don't put them beneath you or anything. Just treat them as human beings. That's what they want. But it's then all these other people who are you know jumping on the bandwagon and kind of like, well, I'm fighting for trans people. It's like you don't even know you don't even know what you only hear the opinions of some trans people, but there's other trans people who disagree. So yeah, the whole
so
thing's
for
nutty.
example, like I can because I was bullied heavily when I was a kid, so I was always thinking about that situation. For example, like because I was a fairly agreeable man, a kid when I was young, and there is some fairly disagreeable kid, uh, temperamentally,
Yeah.
and when two of us meet each other, he gonna overwhelm me, and he gonna ask me to do a certain thing that is sometimes reasonable, sometimes it's unreasonable. And if I don't learn to, react, to decline, or to defend for myself, then I, getting hurt, and I hate life because of that,
Hmm.
basically. And vice versa, if a very aggressive guy who, go around and you know harassing people, attacking people, and that's just, he just need to control it and to make it, to, basically to integrate it to a
Right.
more positive forces. For example, like I always use this example about Batman. Like when it comes to like agreeable personality trait, like it's a personality that called as a facet called straightforwardness. Its ability its ability to or a tendency to say directly what you want.
Yeah,
Like for
assertiveness.
example,
Yeah,
like
assertive and straightforward. Yes, right.
yeah.
Yes,
So for example, like
I
I
think
will,
I took the Big Five personality trait. I think I'm
yeah.
98th percentile for assertiveness. Which is why I get on these videos and I say all the things I say.
That's a
So
great thing. What I'm trying to say is that, for example, like when um, uh, when Batman was trying to say thank you to a female hero that she saved him, like instead of just saying thank you, Batman said that there's always something that I found hard to do, which is say thank you.
right.
Instead of just saying thank you,
Yeah, yeah.
what I'm tr- what I'm trying to say is, like, if you are the kind of people who is not that straightforward, who to trying to be discreet, trying to be calculated and pragmatic, then at least trying to be funny or be reasonable about how to express your emotion. Like Batman, for example, like if you don't want to say thank you to people, just say it like him.
Right.
Like and for example, like me, I always telling my girlfriend I love you every day, like at least 2 times. And it's sort of a thing that agreeable people do. Like they express their emotion, like the way they feel it. And that's something that, I sometimes have to, integrating to a work environment, because when you're working, you cannot just say whatever the fuck you want, right? That's just weird and unreasonable, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
sometimes like um how do you say it, my thinking was just so low, was in such a low resolution that it's really weird that when people just tell me that I shouldn't do it. For example, like when my mother tell me that I work as like a food runner in a huge Japanese restaurant.
Hmm.
So like they they waste a lot of food. They waste a lot of food, and it's just bothering me because I was raised to not waste any food whatsoever, and they just like there's a big ass tuna, and this is they just get rid of a huge proportion of the tuna because it doesn't look good on a dish.
Sure.
It's a really high and expensive and fancy restaurant, and I just felt like I just want to ask them that I keep the leftover fish, and when I after 3 days of working, I brought the leftover fish home. I asked the the man working at the kitchen to bring home the fish, and my parent um, tell me that I shouldn't do it, and I just couldn't figure out why. But after thinking about it, like actually putting some thought about it, and I realized that I actually shouldn't bring such a leftover food to my house because, for example, like if everybody doing it systematically, then it's not gonna be turned out great for the restaurant
Sure.
or the manager. And so my parents they tell me that I shouldn't do it, but they didn't use the right reason.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I have to I have to, I can always disregarding them because they were not just that logical. But they mean well, and even though they cannot, consciously articulate what they actually want to say, they still want the best for me. And so I trying to think hard about how and why I shouldn't do it and why I should do it. And they got a point, and I accepted that. But the problem is that there's a part of me that really just don't want to waste food, and don't give a shit about what other people have to
Yeah.
say because
Right.
yeah, because my parents just tell me that if you just take the food home, then people are going to look at you with disgust way, and they're not going to promote you later on if you're trying to work there in the long term. And they're just not going to convince me like that because I don't care about
Yeah.
what other people have to say that much.
Right. Well,
But
it's like you know how Jordan Peterson the meme is clean your room, right? It's like,
yeah,
well, every parent told their kids to clean their room and they didn't listen. But
yeah,
when Jordan Peterson says it, well, now it takes on this new meaning because he's articulating all of the reasons why. Hey, it's not
yeah,
just cleaning your room. It's by cleaning your room, you're organizing the space that you exist in, right? If you have a clean room, then you can, you know, act more productively in the morning. You can, like what I do is, I try to, you know, um, set up the clothes I'm gonna wear the next morning just right on my dresser, so that when I wake up, I can just boom, 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 get up and go. Whereas if I just, fall asleep drunk and I don't have anything prepared, well, then I'm like, oh, I gotta get up. Now I have to clean my room first thing in the morning. It's like I don't want to do that. So it's funny, yeah. That's it's so interesting because I can hear just from talking to you, you know, and all of the ways in which the sort of the main ideas that Peterson puts forward. It's like it just becomes integrated, and it's just just because you can't consciously articulate something doesn't mean there's not a good reason to do
yeah.
it, right? And it's like so, man, it's just interesting. Wow.
And like for example, like my girlfriend, for example, like she was very thin, like, and she had a really weird, you know, how to say it, she doesn't eat properly, so she just doesn't get the help necessarily to work and to just walk out the home to buy some food, for example. It's like she just rather be starved than to walk out the home to just buy some food or just exercise and stuff like that. And I just it's really hard to just convince her to eat properly.
Mm-hmm.
Let's taking care of your body first, and then you're gonna get some strength to work. And because of that, you're gonna have some leftover strength to do something else, like going out with me
Mm-hmm.
on the night on after the night, and stuff like that. And it's really hard to convince people only that if they don't respect or know how to use logic in their life, because it's something that you have to train. Like Jordan
Definitely.
Peterson has said that to have a scientific mind, you have to train, and it is not that easy.
Mm-hmm.
But and it is especially hard when people just don't respect science in Eastern country. It's really hard because people, people believe in astrology and some fairly ancient, you know, outdated stuff, and it's really hard to change that without creating another structure to replace it,
Mm-hmm.
to cover for it, and it's
Right.
really really hard.
Wow.
um,
Yeah. Well.
mm,
Um.
mm,
Jeez. I've really enjoyed this, by the way. This has been,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I've laughed a lot too, which I wasn't expecting, but I'm glad I did. I know we're coming up on an hour here.
yeah, yeah, okay.
But
Well,
yeah, if you have anything,
I have one thing to ask you
yeah,
about,
yeah,
like the only thing that I disagree with Jordan Peterson he is that he call like the communist country like tyranny, or like, how to put it, like tyrannical,
tyrannical, yeah.
because for example, like in Vietnam, like we have a mythology, like which is that we are a small country. We get invaded fairly on a fairly regular basis, and we want independence. We want you know you know to be an isolated utopia, for
Mm-hmm.
example. Like, so basically, the communists provide that ideology, provide that theory, to stay away from the Western influence, you know, you know, a paradise that have only Vietnamese people and stuff like that, and basically the patrioticism that get mixed in with the communist propagandas, and people just get confused. And I just don't like it when people just call like the forefather, the one who founded the Vietnamese country after the Civil War, like a dictatorship, for example, because you know you cannot really blame us, like the one who fought and sacrificed for the country to wish to be independent and be isolated, to be separate from the Western sphere. And it's really it's really, I just feel like weird to just call like people who just trying to fight for their independence like dictatorship.
Mm,
Like it's really weird that to call people like Ho Chi Minh a dictatorship, because he actually want to liberate the country from the France, and he did it.
right.
He done it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he tried to reunite the country. and and the thing is, because we are a fairly small country, so you know, international intervention is going to be different from, because we have a rather limit influence effect on other country,
Mm-hmm.
while big imperialism country like America can impose many sanctions, and our and armies and stuff like that to like smaller country, just in name of suppressing communism and dictator regime, and it just you know makes people life harder. For example, like when when the U.S. sanctioned Cuba, for example, like the reason is that they sanctioned Cuba so that the 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 people of Cuba are gonna hate the government, hate the communism, and then want to overthrow the communism party regimes, and things like that happened in Vietnam too. Like we were extremely poor, and we have to fend off fend off invasion from many sides, many many periods, and it's really hard when the Western country trying to impose many sanctions upon us, and just make it harder. And and then and then when we when our economy crumble, and they just call it, see, that's the consequence of
Mm,
you know communism, and and it's just really hard. Every when I watch a movie, and when kids watch movie, like there's a lot of American movie. We see life in America, like the Silent of the Lamb, and many epic classical movie.
mm-hmm.
We see that society there is is peaceful and rich. We ha- you have subway. We don't have subway. We never had that. We have our first metro like 4 months ago.
Wow.
It was in built for like 12 years with a lot of inflation and corruption
Hmm.
to make that the first metro. It was horrible event for traveling here is really difficult, and the infrastructure is terrible. For example, like the electric grid was not underground, but hanging around in in the sky. It's
Sure.
extremely dangerous
Exposed
and ugly.
wires. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, extremely dangerous and ugly, and many things like that. For like the water pipe, the water drains, it wasn't built properly, and therefore, when you're building a new house, it's really it can easily screw up the close by neighborhood area and many stuff like that. And we just the problem is just accumulating and compounded, and it's really really hard for us to solve things, especially when I felt like I generally felt like the Western country, you know, trying to basically brainwashing the Vietnamese people that there's nothing good could come from communism, and so, to a certain extent they are right because communism is in fact a lot of corruption and evil,
Hmm.
but the problem is that it is got mixed in with
Right.
patriotic tendency to saving the country from foreign invader, and then after establishing uh, regaining the independence, like we just don't know what to do because after like 9 years of trying to live by the communist so ideology, it just doesn't works. And then we have a reform basically trying to you know have free market economies and stuff like that. Was And basically the people getting richer and richer every day.
Right.
Life's getting better.
Right.
And the problem with the matter is that, for example, like I watched the debate about like meat eating at Oxford about that ridiculous lunatic ladies there about like,
Yeah.
about how eating meat is sexism, like uh, patriarchy and colonialism and stuff like that,
Yeah.
or the social justice buzzwords. And it's like those people they never know how it feels when starvation hits and 4 million Vietnamese die. It's really hard to say that, to think that, and like to say that, and like eating meat is wrong, is evil, and stuff like that. When like my my forefathers starved to death, like stuff like that. It's just weird. It's just odd to
Hmm.
that people just say that, and the standards of living is getting better and getting raised, and that's good. But nobody's gonna be satisfied with what they currently have, right?
Right.
So we're no longer starving, and the problem is we need to thank somebody for that. We just thank somebody for that. For example, like in the World War II, like the France and the Japanese, they dry up our country to supporting their war, and then 4 million of Vietnamese people died. 2 to 4 million people died, and a lot of people, become starved to death. They starve to death. They don't know how to read. They get invaded by many imperial forces. And you have to recognize that the communist forces they actually liberating and teaching people how to read,
Hmm.
and actually give people and women actually a fair reason to live. Like basically we have equality because everybody was oppressed, everybody was starved to death. So
Yeah.
it's easy for us in that way. For example, like you making fun of like I know that Western people making fun of people like for China people, Vietnamese people, like Korean people eat dogs and stuff like that. But you have to understand that we starve to death. We want to eat whatever the fuck we want, like as long as we survive. And after we survive, then we can decide what we eat, what we shouldn't eat. And there's a time and place for everything. But you have to understand that we should, like Jordan Peterson said, like we need to look at things in as an evolution, as a continuum, as a story. That at this point of the story, we eat dogs, and perhaps we still eat dog right now. But it's probably gonna take about like 15 years before we're gonna get rid of that tradition. And I would dare to say that eating dogs is like it's rather a tradition in like Eastern country. And I don't think it. To be honest, dog meat doesn't taste that good. I don't. I know.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, and yeah, there's definitely that stigma. Oh well, they eat dogs over there. It's like, well, cows are capable of affection and all that, so it's not really that different. At the end of the day, we just view it differently because of cultural things. So that you're onto something for sure.
Yeah. And I just get bothered by people just calling, like because do you watch like Bad Empanada, the YouTuber
Bad
Bad
empanada.
Empanada?
I've heard of him. I think I don't know if I've watched him too much.
Yeah, but I usually watch a lot of his video, and I think he's got a good point. He's a leftist, like red soup, like
Yeah.
right. I think and like for example, I want to tell you that um that everybody in Vietnam was um indoctrinated. How do I put it? Was
Indoctrinated.
indoctrinated
Yeah.
by Marxism, Leninism. When they go into college, it's mandatory. Everybody had to learn it,
Yeah. Well,
but
sounds like the
nobody.
U.S. Yeah, they do the same thing here, depending on what degree
Yeah,
you get. Right.
basically nobody here respect that. Nobody care about what they had to say about what the course. Basically, they just you know bribe the teacher to get passed, or trying to cheat on the exam, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody care. And while in college, I kind of hate the professor who forced people to read to study such a thing. But after I finish stuff finish that stuff, get over that, I just pity them because they teach something that nobody give a shit about. Nobody respect them. Nobody believe in what they teach, and everybody have to pretend that it means something. And
Right.
they were put in a situation where it's horrible for them, and they just cannot just openly bluntly say that they don't believe in it. But I know that they don't. But they have to pretend they do, and basically they live like they are possessed, like they possessed ideologically,
Yeah.
and it's just
Ideologically
just
possessed. Yeah.
and it's just really really weird
Right.
that we will grow up that way. And like to be honest, like it's really hard to defending communism, like, and I'm not trying to do so. I'm trying to saying that you had to like a lot of leader like Ho Chi Minh, for example. I don't think he's necessarily a bad guy. And even land reform, like my parents, like I said, my grandparents own a huge amount of land that inherent from the monarchy age. And I don't think it's it's fair to have such a vast vastly superior chance over other people at that point of time. Like, and to be honest, like we were put in a situation where if we don't do land reform, mm, people are gonna hate us. People are gonna hate the
Yeah.
communism.
Yeah.
And if we do the land reform, then somebody gonna get hurt. Somebody gonna get killed unfairly because
Right.
perhaps they get the land the fair and square. But who knows? When they hit the reset button, then everybody damn if they do, damn if they don't.
Right.
Really sad
Yeah.
put in that situation. And it's really sad that when I watched Jordan Peterson said something like about rent reform in like Russia, about Malcolm Muggeridge and stuff like that, and I just think about the situation that happened in Vietnam. That, like, for example, like what happened in Vietnam was not was not that bloody, was not that murderous. And of course we the economy definitely went much better when when the free market economies gradually become established. But you have to understand that it's it's really unfair to just telling that the communism has nothing to offer to people,
Right.
because like basically it had everything to offer to people, like continually get invaded and to be treated unfairly. And that I think that's why that these DRE,
Mm-hmm.
the
DEI.
DIE,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, stuff like that. Mm, Those kind of people who continually feel that they are being oppressed and suppressed, they like communism because they provide them like an utopia, separating themselves from the people and the thing that they are hate. But the problem is that it's like but the problem is communism is like like that Hansen and Gretel story. It's like communism is like
Too good to
that
be
witch,
true. Yeah.
too witch to be true.
Candy
And
house.
again, like it tastes good at first, but when you get addicted to such a thing, it's just become it's consuming.
Yeah. Well,
Let's say like that.
you're absolutely right, and that's why
Mhm.
like when Black Lives Matter, they were rioting in the United States. It's
Yeah,
like,
I heard of that.
yeah, it's like, well, like obviously there's the burning down businesses and violence and all that. It's not
Mhm.
good. It's not helpful. It doesn't do anything. But you have to ask again, well, what's underneath it? Why are they doing that? Why do they want to do that?
Mhm.
Right? And it's like, well, people get upset when black athletes kneel for the national anthem. It's like, well, why are we getting upset with them that they're exercising their right to free speech? And so when they're trying to when you won't even let them do the thing that our country is supposed to stand for, well then of course they're going to go and say, well, if people are going to get upset at me for exercising my First Amendment right, well
Mhm.
then maybe this whole thing's a joke, and you claim to care about free speech, but then you don't like it when we do it. So, and the other thing that you said that I thought was interesting was because Vietnam's a small country,
Mhm.
your mythology is about being a small country and having invaders come in, and you kind of have to be an independent
And pop.
utopia.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so
yeah,
the communist kind of ideas can hijack that, or can kind of sit on top of that mythology,
yeah,
and then people
yeah.
people really like that, and that makes
Mhm.
sense. So, and we, and I put myself in this category too,
Mhm.
we in the West, and
Mhm.
maybe everywhere, well, definitely everywhere, don't know history well at all. And so we hear communism and
Yeah.
we just think bad. We hear, whatever. And it's like, well, yes, obviously communism was bad, but
Mhm. Obviously, 100%.
right, but it's more complicated. Why were good people attracted to it to begin with, right? Why do people feel like they
Mhm.
want to go with it to begin with? And like those are the kind of questions that um, you raised, and I think are valid.
Yeah. My
Um,
answer is it's like it fit right into our mythology.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And myth, and that's the power. That's what motivates people, right? That's what motivates people in
Yeah.
stories, is the mythology. Right.
Mhm. And
Um well, I know we're an hour 15. Is there anything last thing you want to talk about? I definitely want to talk to you again at some point in the future, by the way.
okay, okay, great.
So we'll talk
Um,
again.
Let me say this because
Yeah.
I when I'm saying that the the Eastern country and Vietnamese in particular is rather patriarchal, I didn't say that in a postmodern term at all. Like
Sure.
because postmodern term is something like like Robin DiAngelo. She said that like if you trying to objectively prove that that a situation that when or where racism happened, and it's really hard. So she said that, so let's just assume that racism happened first, and then we trying to understand or just
Yeah.
trying to dissect where
Great idea.
when why and why it happened. But I didn't do that. I trying to tell you, I trying to give you an example first.
Yes.
I'm trying to give you a systematic way of people act about ritual, about myths and stuff like that, so you can understand why I'm saying that. And I think that assuming that kind of assumption is something that is really scary about postmodernism and stuff like that, because when you're assuming that Western society is patriarchal, and then you're trying to find proof, evident that it is a patriarchal society, it's just backward and it's wrong of
Right.
that way of thinking. Instead, you should, trying to just in a liberal sense, like in a fair, logical sense, like is where does it, why does it happening, and stuff like that, asking a very step by step question. And I think that you know, I don't know how to say it, but something needs to be said to defend patriarchy because there's something good in it.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's something good in it. Like, and you have to understand that it's a really idealistic system. For
Right.
example, like if you watch Game of Thrones, like
Yes.
patriarchy is like everybody want to live in a house of Lannister, for example. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody should be like sons and daughters of Tywin Lannister, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And like if you happen to to be under sons and daughter and cousin of very strong man, for example, like my like you can say that my uncle was a fairly powerful man, and basically he saved the entire family. He brought us together,
Mm-hmm.
and he just provide money, helps, and love for a lot of people in the family and outside family. And I have to say that there's people like that in the patriarch society, and vice versa. And there are people who and a man who was horrible, who you know they gambling, they didn't work, they cheating on his wife and stuff like that. They didn't live up to the standards of men, and they and that kind of people who broke and broke and corrupt the patriarchal system, basically.
Right.
Because like imagine like if your wife working her ass off, and then trying to raising a kid, and the husband trying to gambling all the money away, all the saving and stuff like that, then it's just horrible situation
Mm-hmm.
for the kid and for the wife. And it's really hard because especially when like in a time of war when nothing matter, like in a hippie area, for example, like people have a tendency to fall into like addiction, like gambling, like like unwanted sex and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know if the time is right and people actually have a reason to fight, to a reason to live, a hope to fight for, and patriarchal is a fairly good system. And again, like patriarchal, and you can be and not necessarily have to be a man to be the leading role. Sometimes it could be a woman. For example, like my mother was extremely kind, and she basically handle all the feminine aspect of the house. She telling people what to do, what to feel, what to do when you're taking care of the health, because it's an Eastern country. We believe in some fairly bullshit stuff like drinking leaf teas and that it could cure us and
Sure.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just moronic.
Essential
And
oils. Yeah.
yeah, basically snake oil
Right.
and crystal healing. Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's just the
Is
worst.
that big in Vietnam?
Fairly, I guess.
Yeah.
People, it's the kind of worm that nobody wants to open
Sure.
up.
Sure.
And all I wanted to say is that it's great to talk to you, and and I like your channel, especially when I try to translate a video into Vietnamese. I only want to try to translate something that is about 30 minutes or less,
Mm-hmm.
and it's condensed. Like he can just a person in Vietnam can watch the video and I know exactly what I'm trying to say, or the person who I try to translate in the video is trying to say it. For example, like if you in the video that you talk about, like metaphoric substructure, and
Yeah.
that video was great. I love that video.
Thank you.
But there are many videos. It's just not that beginner friendly. It's really hard to translate because, for example, like you made a video about red pill, about manosphere community,
Mm-hmm.
and I also translated that video, but I realized that the people the people that I watch my video, they don't understand what I'm trying
Right.
to get at.
Right.
And
There's a
they
yeah.
basically don't understand what you're trying to get at too,
Right.
because the situation that the manosphere community in Vietnam is also weird as well, extremely weird. Because, like I said, the radical feminism here doesn't exist yet, and probably never will. So
So they have
what
to make
they
up an enemy.
yeah, and like they make up the enemy by like hating on people who is fat, hating and calling other people like beta and stuff like that. It's just weird,
Yeah,
weird,
yeah.
weird.
Well, hey,
And
there's weird people all over the world. That's one thing I've gathered from this conversation. Everywhere you go, there's
yeah,
gonna be weirdos. Yeah.
yeah, great.
Yes.
And another thing that I find it difficult about translating Jordan Peterson video is that he go on with went off a tangent a lot,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
a lot and lots. And every time I'm trying to translate his video, I have to uh, rearrange the order of the segment in the video, or just cut the entirely part, huge part off. For example, like I trying to translating the the the, um, the lecture where he trying to to lecture about the Pinocchio movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I basically um he I had to cut like 5 hours of material just
Yeah.
to get a
Oh yeah.
video.
Yeah.
It's really
I listen to
horrible.
those lectures and I'll start to kind of look off to the side. Like I've heard this tangent before, but like when he's zoned in and when he's just talking about the this, then it's good. So
Yeah,
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Well,
And also like, do you know like a video from the distribution?
the
Let me show
distributist,
you.
I think I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah, send me that.
I he made a really good videos about Dr. Jordan Peterson, and I think I have to agree with it. And
Okay. Yeah, that'll be.
maybe
Is it critical? Is he criticizing Peterson?
the distribution is. Um, I think that not quite. I think it's fair criticism.
Okay. I think I've
Really,
seen
really
I
good.
think I've seen one or two of his videos. But yeah, send me whatever video you're thinking of.
Yeah, I think it's really great,
Yeah.
and I really want you to watch it, and I think it's absolutely fair.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, what I was gonna
Yeah,
say, because we'll wrap up here. You know, you
yeah,
recommended that I do a video from, was it Peter Joseph?
yeah. That
And
freaking asshole.
that guy's funny. I know he's a character. And that video got shared by Adam Friended, Sitch and Adam. I don't know if you know them on YouTube.
I do,
And
I do. I watch all of his video.
you do, okay, yeah. And
Yeah.
he shared my video, and I got a
Hmm.
bunch of new subscribers and stuff. So because you recommended me that video, I got
Hmm.
that was able to happen. So yeah, if you send me one, I'll definitely take a look at it, and I'll try. And if it's got some solid stuff, I'll try and do a video about it. But I
Okay,
wanted to thank you for that recommendation, and thanks for talking. Let's definitely talk again maybe a month or two or something like that,
that would
because
be
I think
great.
this was fun. Yes, I can learn more about you and your situation and all that. So it'll be awesome.